Well, hi everyone. We're so excited about this new sermon series that we're going through right now called Alaylon. I think it's just going to be so much fun, so great for our congregation to think about why we need each other, how we need each other, how we can live and walk life together as believers. And so we wanted to take an opportunity here on Facebook over the next couple weeks to just talk about what this series Alaylon means for our foster and adoptive families. How do we apply it in our own setting, our own families, and our own circumstance as we think about it? Alaylon is actually a Greek word that appears throughout the New Testament, and it comes up a lot of times. It means one another. So there's hundreds of times where it gets used throughout the New Testament to talk about believers loving one another, encouraging one another, right? And praying for one another and bearing one another's burdens. All these important things that we see throughout the scriptures that it's encouraging us as believers to do. And so the first one we're going to talk about is bear one another's burdens. And so it comes from Galatians 6:2, which says, bear one another's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. I have to admit, starting with bear one another's burdens feels really heavy and really hard. I think many of us would probably admit, I've got enough to bear by myself. I don't really feel like picking up anybody else's burdens right now. And yet, this is what Paul tells us it is to be a believer, to be a Christian, to be living life with other believers, is that we're called to bear one another's burdens. And so there's a beautiful example of this in Acts chapter 3, verses 1 through 10. There's a story where Peter and John are together. They're living life together. They're walking along with each other. They're on their way to the temple to pray. And as they're going up to the temple, they come across a man who's crippled. And he's sitting there. His friends actually carry him every day out in front of the temple to beg for money and sit there and ask for money. So he sees Peter and John coming. He asks them for money. And they don't give him money, but they give him something more. They offer him Jesus, and ultimately they offer him healing. And the man is healed. He gets up. He runs around. He's so excited and so joyful. And it's just a beautiful scene of what it is to bear this man's burdens and to lift them up. I think one of the important lessons from this story that we have to remember is that one of the reasons we can bear one another's burdens is because we can trust and go to Christ to be the one who bears our burdens. One of our mantras here at the church is called Be the Branch. What it means is that we should be connected to Jesus and connected to one another. That should be a value for us as believers and a value for us within our church. That we want to be connected to the vine, connected to Jesus. And in being connected to him, we'll have the strength, the power, the energy to be able to help others, to be able to bear one another's burdens. I think when you think about this Acts chapter 3 story, I can't believe that Peter really could have said to this man, get up, you can walk, unless he really had been given that power by Jesus too. And so Peter and John, they are being the branch, they are connected to each other, and they're staying connected to Jesus. I think this is especially true in the foster and adoption journey. A lot of us get in this journey for the right reasons. We're doing the right things. We're motivated by passion, by some different reasons to get involved. But that passion can only last so long. At some point, we need somebody else to sustain us. Jed Medifin from CAFO has a great quote that brings this out. Jed says, the truth is, if you go into this work motivated solely by duty, guilt, or even idealism, you'll eventually run dry. The vastness of the problems will always outstrip your enthusiasm to solve them. As you get into this journey of foster and adoption, what you need is Jesus. When times get tough, when things get hard, and we all know they will get hard, we need Jesus to rely on in those moments to lift our own burdens so that we can be there for others. The other piece of the story, beyond just being the branch, is that when Peter and John encountered this man, they were willing to look deeper into his situation, right? It was obvious he had a need. He was asking for money. And even his friends thought that they were helping him meet his needs. They were bearing his burdens, literally carrying him every day to the temple to sit down and beg for money and get the basic needs met, right? He was able to get those very simple things met. But Peter and John look deeper. They look beyond that to recognize, man, if they could offer him Jesus, if they could offer him healing, then think of what he could do. He could meet his own needs. He could re-enter society, be part of community, right? He could get so many more of his needs met. You know, in our own foster and adoptive families, sometimes we too are consumed by the immediacy of the needs, right? Another child needs a placement. Our kids need the things that they need for school, all the stuff that they need. They need some snacks, lots and lots of snacks. Can I tell you about that? Right? They need therapies. They need all the things, and providing them those basic needs. Sometimes we forget to look a little deeper in what's going on underneath the surface, right? Think about snacks for an example, right? The kid that comes into your home that's maybe new to your family, new to your home, and is just eating up a storm and always worried about when the next meal is and what's going on, and you're just thinking about that. Maybe it's that part of their story is an experience of food insecurity, right? And there's a deeper need that needs to be met, right? They need to know that they can rely on you, trust in you, right? Be connected to you so that they can trust that things will get better, right? This takes us right back to Galatians 6:2, because what Paul says is, bear one another's burdens so that you will fulfill the law of Christ. And we think about that principle, the law of Christ. The law of Christ is so different from the law as it was, right? The old law, the old way, was a way that was based on rules, right? It was based on these things we had to do. And yet the new law, the law of Christ, is based on relationships. It's based on love, kindness, connection. It's a lot like what our families look like sometimes, right? We could get consumed with the rules and the principles, but what we need to remember is we need to value connection over correction. That it isn't about the rules, it isn't about control, it isn't about keeping everybody in line. It's about staying connected to one another. That attachment, that bond, that connection, that's what will change a kid's life for forever, right? And that's what we do when we begin to bear one another's burdens. That we do those small, simple things, but ultimately we begin to connect with each other. Well, today I just want to leave you with two questions to think about as we process this idea of bearing one another's burdens. One is, how are you looking beyond just the immediate needs of your children, of your friends, your family, and looking at what's going on deeper, right? How can you truly bear their burden by knowing what's going on beneath the surface? And number two, how are you prioritizing connection in your home? What are the ways that you're engaging your spouse, your kids, your neighbors, your friends, and valuing connection as a priority in your home? I hope that this sermon series really blesses you and encourages you and your family. We would love to hear from you about what you're learning and what you're applying in your family and in your home. So please share some thoughts in the comments about how you're taking this sermon material in and applying it to your homes and to your lives. We'd love to hear from you. And join us next week. Callie is going to be here to share a little bit about this idea of forgive one another. We'd love to see you back. Thanks for watching.